Hello and welcome back to the Double One Radio Gamescast. As always, I'm your host Ryan, and I'm joined today by my lovely cohort of co-hosts, Brett,
Hello, Wyatt, are you dying? Wyatt
Wyatt.
is dying.
Oh
Wyatt
no.
started laughing
Wyatt
the second
died.
that the theme started playing. For some reason that I cannot tell.
I was sent a thing. Oh, and it made me laugh and it took me by surprise. Anyway, hi.
And
Hi,
then
I'm here. Hi.
We also have Alex. The whole crew's back. All right.
I was silent for my intro.
For today, the Game Awards just around the corner. It's this Thursday. We got some awards to talk about, some nominees to talk about. And we're just going to spend this episode having a chat about our favorite and least favorite Game Awards nominees and kind of predict what we think is going to win as well as say what we think should win. Because those two will probably be very different for a lot of these. All right. Without further ado, is everyone ready to jump in?
Do it.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So we're going to start with the award that the least of us care about. Not to say if you care about this award, no problem to you. We're skipping all the esports player awards because we don't know most of these people, and it wouldn't be fair to judge them based on that. But for esports
Fair, I
game,
will, but it wouldn't be fair.
yeah. For esports game, though, I think most of us know a good bit about these games. So it's while we may not have a horse in the race for who to win, I think we can kind of take some educated guesses on who might. So our nominees for esports game, best esports game of 2021, sponsored by Grubhub, by the way.
Yes, they point that out specifically.
They
I
do
think
point
Grubhub
that out.
is the best esports game of the year.
Call of Duty.
Personally.
We're kicking it off with the Call of Duty, and then we
Starting
got
it off on a high note.
yep. Then we got Counter
interesting. It's
Strike.
just in general. It's just COD in general. I just want to say it's not.
Yeah,
Vanguard.
it's not a specific game, unlike the rest of these, because they could have just said Counter Strike, right? But they said Counter Strike Global Offensive.
I'm assuming this is Vanguard like art that they have.
Yeah, it looks
above
like
the
Vanguard.
title.
Maybe.
And there's Dota 2, League of Legends, and Valorant. Anyone want to take a wild stab and say that Call of Duty is probably not going to win?
Ooh.
Not a chance. Not a chance. Seeing League of Legends in the best esports game.
It's been in the best
I
esports game for like the
think-
past 5 years, I think.
Yeah, and I think the
Yeah,
gameplay is good, but I'm still constantly distracted by the presence of their community. And I'm reminded by the one review from Arcane
Yeah.
talking about the game.
Yeah.
I do wonder if Arcane is going to keep League in people's minds that are voting for this, because I don't think many of the reviewers who are on the judges panel have a big stake in any of these games, and I think it's going to be like mostly what is the thing that the average person is most familiar with. I'm thinking that's Dota 2 is off the table, pretty much.
Keeping
Yeah,
themselves
Dota's
in
gone
the
now,
mind's
pretty
eye.
much.
Counter-Strike and Valorant are there because they're still popular, but I think Valorant of the two would take it because it's newer.
Really?
Mhm. I think
Yeah,
so, yeah.
because Counter-Strike's won it before many times. So-
It's old, reliable, tried and true. It hasn't really done anything to. None of these games really have done anything to stand out in terms of like being a really good
Yeah.
esports game. I think is worth pointing out. But I do agree with what you're saying, Ryan. That League of Legends is the most like the one that's just furthest forward in people's brains because of all the like the expanded universe content that they're doing now. Which isn't like you'll realize, I'm sure, many things that we talk about is like, whoa, that doesn't make sense. Why would that make a game win best esports? Well, they probably would because it's the only one that people would probably mostly agree with.
Yeah,
So,
because I'm thinking of like what amount of judges would vote for these games, and I'm like most of them probably dislike Call of Duty a little bit, right?
Yes.
Because that's the
Yeah,
popular thing to do, so they're gonna dislike it. And like Call of Duty esports are not a thing you hear about very much.
no, like never.
Whereas Counter-Strike, League, and Valorant, you hear about their esports a lot. Dota, you don't really hear about much unless it's the big international tournament. But even then, like we hear all that stuff about all
Well,
these
the
other
other
games
thing,
too.
the other thing is, like, again, it's curious that it's just called Call of Duty because do you mean Vanguard or do you
Yeah.
mean like Warzone? Like, what does that even?
It's like even the people putting Call of Duty on this don't care very much.
Just
Well,
don't
because,
care, yeah.
because they have games, and because they have games like Counter Strike that came out in like 2012, this could be referring to any Call of Duty game.
Yeah.
Which one are
Also-
you even talking about? There's a new one
So-
every year.
So I don't think. Hang on. Yeah, Overwatch wasn't on there. Is that because of? Did it fall out of favor before? the Blizzard
Overwatch
Activision
hasn't
stuff?
really
Act-
gotten any new content in a long time,
It has
whereas all of these games have had meaningful new
Probably because
content
they're
all the
working
time.
on two
Two.
at the moment.
And the whole storm of Activision
Yeah.
Blizzard stuff going on.
Well, that goes without saying.
Yeah.
It's good not to promote that in a national.
And it
Game
is good to
Award.
point out. So Jeff Keighley did mention that
Yes.
Activision Blizzard does not have any involvement in this, aside from the few games that were nominated. So, no involvement in this.
Can't imagine any of
this
them
year.
winning anyway.
Mhm.
All right. So
I gotta say,
go ahead.
this bit of Valorant art on here though is very pretty. I have no
Very
idea.
nice.
exactly
Valorant looks very good.
What is
I have
that?
no idea what it is I'm looking at, but it's very pretty.
feel- I what I've seen is very pretty. What very little I've played, it just feels like an average.
There's nothing about it that
Thing.
that like
Yeah, it's just
Yeah,
not
piques my
I just
excitement.
don't enjoy these shooters very much usually. So, I like my more casual shooters and not my
a little
competitive
too
ones.
sweaty for my taste.
I know many people that do enjoy it quite a lot, but
Yeah.
not for me. All right, so our prediction, I think, officially is League of Legends, and if barring League of Legends, probably Valorant or CS:GO. Moving on to our next category, as soon as I can get the page to load. The most
Very fancy
anticipated
page.
game.
Yes.
So we've got, this is one of the ones that's got a lot of stuff here.
A lot of good stuff.
So,
A lot of
obvious one out of the way, Elden Ring is on this list.
yeah.
And you might
And
think,
without-
oh, Elden Ring is like a shoo-in, right? But then you list the rest of these games, which is God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Breath of the Wild sequel, and Starfield, and you go, there's a lot of good games on this list.
The only
Yeah.
one that I'm really questioning is Starfield because of like Bethesda's past, recent efforts. I think there's probably not as much excitement for a Bethesda RPG as there has been in the past, but
Yeah,
And
there's a
Starfield-
point where there's a certain amount of time between projects where
Exactly.
okay, yeah, your excitement is this, and then it will start to die down. And
Mhm.
Bethesda is way past that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They haven't built up enough hype for Starfield to
It's
sustain it
probably-
nearly as much as any of these other games.
it's probably on here because they revealed it this year and they have
Oh,
like
boy.
their little
mean-
CG whatever teaser trailer.
Yeah.
Which
And they've
Well,
been
and-
dropping bits of information here and there over the past couple months, but
and we've talked about this before, especially with the Cyberpunk things. Overhyping a game can be deadly.
Yes.
Yeah, at least they're not overhyping it. That is a good point.
That's true.
All right, so between that, we still have Elden Ring, Ragnarok, Forbidden West, and Breath of the Wild sequel on the
if
table.
I had, yeah.
What is the next game we should eliminate?
Eliminate Horizon.
Horizon?
See, I almost
Yeah.
want to say Zelda though, because we know a lot more about Horizon than we do Zelda. And
But I think
that
we've hit the
garners
point with
more excitement.
Horizon where they showed a lot of it off pretty early and then it got delayed.
Mhm.
And so the hype has kind of died down again because we know what we're expecting.
Yeah. There's still that healthy in quotes amount of like mystery for
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild too, because
No idea where-
it's we don't even know what it's called. It's just the sequel
Yeah.
to The Legend of Zelda
So
Breath of the
that
Wild.
one
on the
clip of
website.
Link like swimming through an island and appearing at the top set the
It's-
internet
yeah,
on
yeah.
fire. So
It's
No,
just
that's fair. I mean, the floating islands was enough for me, where I was like, "What?" Like I remember us freaking,
especially
out.
because we don't know when Breath of the Wild's coming out. Because that game could just drop at any point.
I don't
'Cause-
think Nintendo's gonna do that, but like just like here it is, bam.
I mean, I think
But-
they're gonna announce the release date. My prediction would be like 4 months away from release
yeah,
at this point,
like a
because they've said
within
it's
a year.
2022 most likely. So
Kind of like what they did with Metroid Dread, where they announced
Yeah.
it and released it pretty quickly. So that makes sense.
that'd be my bet. All right, so we're eliminating Horizon, Ragnarok, Elden Ring, and Breath of the Wild. At this point, I think Breath of the Wild goes.
Mhm.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Breath of the
Yeah.
Wild
I
is
think-
leaving.
For me at least, it's interchangeable between God of War and Breath of the Wild for this one, because I think I've felt the same amount of like hype from other people for like either one, because I have a couple of friends that are really excited for the next God of War installment and really like what that looks like it's going to do, and I have a couple of friends that are the same amount of excited for Breath of the Wild and what that's going to do. So both of them for me are like in the same level of like people both really want them to come out soon.
So I'll give you the same. Wyatt and I talked about this before the show, and my consideration here is that I think the audience voting for these is a panel of review judges, essentially.
Yeah.
Right? So they're voting for these. I'm wondering how many of them are voting for Elden Ring based on like playing Dark Souls, because with critics they are like a beloved game, but it's usually by the person that plays those games, right? Like they don't usually have multiple people covering Souls games. Whereas like God of War is something everyone is excited about.
Yeah.
So I do wonder if that's gonna tilt it in one direction. I don't know. We'll see. All right, who wants to make the call here?
I mean, I gotta rep my boy.
I gotta rep my boy.
and complete and utter respect, because it could
Same
go
to you.
either way. I think if it was, I think it did win last year, most anticipated.
Elden Ring did win last year. Yeah.
Last that makes more sense because the announcement was more like fresh in people's minds. I think if the tech test was more open than it was, I think Elden Ring could easily take it, because then like
more people would have tried it.
And like people who like review games could also have gotten more hands on it. But I think just because like not that many people did, and you're depending so much on hearsay, I could totally see just like that excitement for the next God of War to overtake it this year, and it makes sense for it not to win 2 years in a row.
I think it does, but God of War, I think, is also on the fringe of the excitement dying down, at least for me.
It's been a while, I feel like, since
Yeah.
they had it.
Ago was that
Elden Ring.
gameplay reveal? Was it a couple months ago? Something like that?
Yeah, a couple months.
Yeah.
Less recent than Elden Ring, but all right. So it sounds like the consensus here is mostly either one of these two.
I think it's a tie.
We'll call this one a tie, because I do think it is pretty hard to call. My bet, because it is the horse I'm backing, is Elden Ring, and I'm sure the same is for Brett.
Yeah.
For you two, what is your pick of these 5 games?
Like I said, I gotta rep my boy, but
God of War.
Boy.
We have a perfect 50-50 split here.
All right, perfect. That means
Beautiful.
our first tie of the night. Best debut indie. So this is gonna be hard for us to call a winner on, because I think a lot of these games not all of us have played, or that like 2 of us have played and then the others haven't. So Artful Escape.
I've played only 2 out of the 5 here.
I've played 3 of these. I haven't played Kana yet, or Artful Escape, but Artful Escape is our first nominee. It is a very beautiful game that I don't think any of us have had the time to play yet.
No, yeah.
Might be coming up on a Game Pass Game Club, though. Could certainly happen. The Forgotten City, which is the mod that was turned into a full game, won a Writers Guild Award. Kana Bridge of Spirits, Sable, and Valheim.
Am I the only one here that's played Kana out of the 4 of us?
So far, yeah. I definitely.
I've watched a teeny bit, but I haven't played.
I love this game. It's one of those, like, it has a lot of flaws, or not a lot, but it has some like pretty noticeable flaws, but like you get so into it that you just kind of don't care after a while. Because I plowed through the whole thing pretty quickly, if you remember. Just because I was so engrossed in it, and I think, and I was talking with Ryan about this a little bit. In terms of best debut indie, I feel like
debut
taking a debut. Oh my god.
It's okay. You're tired. You're tired.
It's week before finals, dude. I'm so out of it right now. But I think the background of the developer should be taken into consideration somewhat here, and not that like a 3D animation studio is like a completely different thing from a game studio, but just coming from a different background and making something so well made and competent your first time around is really impressive.
I mean, you say that for Kana, which I agree with. It is an impressive first game, but then you also have, I want to bring up especially Forgotten City. That was a game made by a bunch of non-professionals who modded and then formed their own development teams. So if you're talking about first-time development teams, I think that's a very impressive story. And then Valheim was like a 5-person studio, less than that. Yeah, there was like 2 people that then sold 4 million copies.
I will say, having the other game on this list that I've played be Valheim, if Valheim won, I would be totally fine with that.
I do think
it is incredible.
I do honestly think Valheim should not be eligible because it's still early access.
Yeah.
Technically, yeah, that's true.
I mean,
I'm not a huge fan of it being on the list, even though it is a great game.
I haven't heard anything about it since the first week it was out.
Well, because they're doing a slow update cycle. They're doing the update cycle. They make sure everything's very polished before they release it.
I mean,
a lot of things
let's put it. I'll put it
broken.
this way though: if PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds can win a a game award, then I feel like Valheim should be able to.
You know what?
I'll
Yeah,
put it
you're
that
right.
way.
But I will put it against the 4 of these that are all finished games.
Yeah.
I do think it puts Valheim at a disadvantage here.
I
Do
think
they have a
comparatively.
category for like early access?
I think they did one year. I don't think they do this year.
They really should
They should
because
keep it up, yeah.
Valheim would be a great like candidate for that.
Like early
And
access
have it
success
be-
story or something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
have it be a debut game when it actually the year it actually comes out.
Yeah.
I
'Cause
feel
a
they
lot of
should-
times when games like when people consider like, oh, this indie game first came out is like when it's still technically early access, and then so that's when like with Valheim, that's when people start playing like a ton of it, and then if you were to wait like a year or something until it comes out in full, again in quotes, like people might just like forget about it, except for the people that are really faithful playing. So I feel like having that category of like still early access success stories or something like that would be very like helpful for games that are like Valheim
Yeah.
and so many other multiplayer indie games that are
Get
in
some
that
eyes on 'em.
situation.
It does also speak to Valheim's quality that it's here at all, that enough people
Yeah, yeah.
considered it to
Yeah.
be a full game, even though it's in early access. It's good enough to be like compared to games that are actually out and finished.
But I also legitimately
it
think
says a
this might be the hardest category for me to actually try to predict.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Because
same.
it is all of these games are, I think, pretty deserving of it.
Yeah.
From what I've seen, I haven't played Artful Escape or Kana, but Wyatt loves Kana, and I trust his opinion. And Artful Escape looks very beautiful, but I've heard nothing about it. So I think the
I
only
don't even
reason
know.
I don't think Artful Escape's going to win is because I have not heard any buzz about it.
Yeah.
But that could just be I just missed it for whatever reason. So I think my picks for this would be either Forgotten City, Kana, or Sable are the 3 that I think are most likely to be one of
I've heard a
those.
lot of good things about Sable.
Because all 3 of those are the ones that have been talked about the most recently, I think.
Mhm.
Any strong opinions from other people?
I think I do think Valheim does have a pretty good chance in this category, but I also it's in something multiplayer related. I think later on we'll get to it. And I think unless I'm forgetting, that's against Final Fantasy 14, in which case it has no chance. If it's not, then it does have a better chance in that than it does here, because I feel like then that's how you can get past like the early access like thing.
Yeah.
But it's still such a good debut for a studio that's so small and it's so polished. It's more polished than a lot of AAA games when they come out.
With more content.
With more content, and it's still getting more.
Yep.
And it's so much fun to play.
It's not even
and
finished.
It's not even finished, yeah. And Sable, my God, was not polished at all, but I do not care because it was so good. Like that atmosphere in that game is just so thick. It was that is like that's one of those games that I've been waiting for a while since they showed the first trailer.
Would you
like, a
say
couple
that it
years ago.
was Sable to capture your attention?
All right, this is my last episode on the podcast, and after this, I will be departing and giving my,
All right.
my role over instead to my dog.
All right.
So,
That
next time.
was wonderful.
That was a good one.
Thank you, Al.
I think Forgotten City is my front runners for this. As much as I like Sable now, after hearing everyone talk, I think are Kana and Forgotten City, because Forgotten City I think is
Wait, what was
less
that first
people
one?
have Forgotten City and Kana.
Oh, I thought you said Arcana. I'm like, wait, what?
No, Kana.
Same here. I thought
Bridge of
yeah.
Spirits. Forgotten City, I think less people will have played, but it had a lot of buzz. Like Forgotten City had a lot of people talking about it for a long time, and I think that does make a difference for these.
For sure, yeah.
Then
Kana did just kind of.
I think most
Fallout.
more people have played Kana would be my bet, because I think a lot of industry people who probably don't need to worry a lot about like a game spending budget, right? Because Kana is also the most expensive game on this list by a large margin. So I don't think games industry people are having to worry about like game budget. So I think most of them will have played Kana.
I would argue it's also the most like accessible in terms of like, genre on the list as well.
Yeah.
I'm biased for the look of them, so I'd say Kana, but it's it's tied for me between Kana and Sable. But I remember what Kana's about, and the only thing that sticks to me with Sable is its beautiful art style.
All right, so it sounds like our Keeley prediction for this one probably goes to Kana. And then I think our individual awards are definitely very split. I'd probably give it to Forgotten City, most likely, just because it was very unique. But then again, I could say that for all of these games. So this is one of the ones you'd have to ask me, and I'd toss a coin to see.
Yeah. Good category.
But also, I think that being said, I think this is a very good spread of indie games. Also,
true, which we'll talk about later.
There's a lot of variety here in terms of like the type of game.
Because there are a couple awards here that maybe don't have the best spread.
I'd
like to see each game awards. I'd like to see a mystery category.
That'd be fun. Just to have like a fun one. Yeah.
Mystery and point and click or something.
Yeah.
Oh no, I mean like a random category.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
The action sack of the Game Awards.
We doing content creator or no?
No, we're not doing content creator. So I think none of us here know at least 3 of these people, right?
Listen,
I think maybe each of us maybe knows one of them. So
all you need to know is that content creators of the year is us. And
obviously.
Look, that's it. End of story. Moving
on.
We're
001 for a reason, everybody.
Because
honestly,
#1.
Honestly, that we're not on the list. Here. Kind of a spit in our faces, not gonna lie. I do feel spited.
Listen, Jeff, after all we've said about your kicks, you won't even drop us a nomination. What the heck?
So, speaking of nominations, we got more nominees to cover in Best Multiplayer. So, this is Back 4 Blood, Knockout City, It Takes Two, Monster Hunter Rise, New World, and Valheim. Off the bat, we can eliminate Knockout City and New World.
Yeah.
Yes.
As much as I do like Knockout City, New World has no chance.
No,
zero chance.
No chance. Well, and also like MMOs often have to like mature when they come out, and they really become something special. I mean, Final Fantasy 14 took a while to get off.
Final Fantasy 14 killed itself and rose again a year later.
Rose from the ashes like a phoenix.
I mean, somehow ESO is still kicking around, and it's still doing pretty good for itself.
ESO's doing great.
Pretty shaky start.
Really?
New World maybe is going to have a resurgence at some point, but in the launch state it's in right now, no way it can win against half of these games, right? Like every other game on this list is more polished.
The best thing you can say about New World is that it wasn't Crucible.
And it maybe has potential, right? Maybe has potential if they fix it. All right, so this is the one with Valheim. As much as I like Valheim, I don't think it's going to win against these other 3.
I can't vouch because I haven't played Valheim. I think I'm the only person here who hasn't.
So in my reasoning is I actually think this applies to both Monster Hunter and Valheim. As much as I love Monster Hunter, neither of these games are core co-op experiences.
Yeah, it's multiplayer isn't
totally playable single player.
Exactly 2 games on this list that I would argue are very much designed around co-op.
Yeah, where as much as Monster Hunter is a co-op franchise and Valheim is a great co-op game, neither of them forces you to play co-op and is exclusively built around it, and they're both excellent single-player games.
And because this is the multiplayer category, that is really an important aspect to take into
and I just think when compared with Back 4 Blood and It Takes Two, it doesn't hold up quite as well. I'm curious on if Brett and Alex agree with that.
I think, and this is going off of like what I've heard mostly because Valheim is the only one in this category that I've played. But like, there's just not as much. I'm only talking about Back 4 Blood here mostly. There's not as much buzz around that compared to because I know Valheim wasn't designed to be like multiplayer only, but that multiplayer experience was like clearly more than good enough for a lot of people. There's certainly for me because there's just things that you can do in that you can't do in other multiplayer survival games of its type. I think that alone, like I totally get it. Like not having that like core design to be only multiplayer absolutely makes sense to me. But I think still, in spite of that, it's so successful in that regard that I think if not like winning, it still has a chance. And I think that just kind of it's in the category for a reason. You know?
Now, Wyatt, I know you and I have a pick for this.
Yes.
And I hope very much it is the critic pick for this. Yes. We've both played Back 4 Blood and It Takes Two.
We've enjoyed both. a lot.
It Takes Two should definitely take it.
Yes.
Oh, I hope
universally.
So. Only in one of them can you your aim of the game is to make your child cry.
And you're asking a huge Monster Hunter fan, right? And any other year, I would have given this to Monster Hunter.
Mhm.
It Takes Two
But
is just really
But
good.
It Takes Two, man. It Takes Two.
It Takes Two is still in contention for my goatee. So
Yeah, no, it's definitely mine. And
Especially,
go ahead, Alex.
Instead of taking one award, I hope It Takes Two.
Yep.
How could you?
I'm glad that I let him speak for that pun. I'm very proud of you.
It's your fault.
I think especially hey man, I'm fine with it. I think in multiplayer category, it makes the best case for an actual like co-op experience because like you cannot like the thing is like our top two or at least or second place for Ryan and I is Back 4 Blood, which is a co-op.
Back 4 Blood isn't second place for me. I do want to think. I think Back 4 Blood doesn't have a chance for this.
Well,
yeah.
Regardless, my second place is Back 4 Blood. The thing is, it comes down to like in Back 4 Blood, you can be the person that carries your team, and if everyone else dies, you can still make it to the end. You cannot complete It Takes Two without the other person, which is a quintessential like co-op pillar. Where it's like if you can't get through the game without your buddy, that is kind of like the mark of
and it's split screen
co-op experience.
It's split screen co-op, even online, which is great.
Even online, it's still split screen.
And it does some really cool things with the camera, with the split screen stuff, and like it lets you do things like look at your other player's screen to make sure you're on the right track or whatnot. So
it also reinvents itself every like half an hour.
Yeah, it's really like 6 games.
Yeah, that are all done at the bare minimum competently or really well done.
Yeah. So I definitely think that is what should take it. It's probably also my prediction because I think a lot of critics played this game because they definitely have someone to play it with. So it's the kind of game where I think a lot of them would have played it and a lot of them would have liked it a lot. The only other games I think I could actually see winning this are probably Valheim and Monster Hunter. I don't think Back 4 Blood has enough buzz around it and enough sticking power, especially because it didn't review super well.
Mm-hmm.
As much as we
poorly, but it wasn't.
But like compared to Valheim and Monster Hunter, which both reviewed pretty much universally extremely well.
That's
and It Takes Two. So yeah, I definitely think It Takes Two is going to take this. Anyone else have other thoughts that something else would take this, or their own personal pick?
No, that makes sense because even like I haven't played it, but I've only heard like fantastic things about it, and it seems like it's not like I wouldn't call it like the equivalent of like Oscar bait, but like a game or a movie comes out and you just know that like critics are gonna love this one.
This is gonna win. Like when Parasite comes out and you're like it's gonna win Best Picture.
Intimate story that comes out in the latter half of the year, like especially when the winter season. That's when all your Oscar movies come out. Yeah, no, I do know what you're saying. Even though it came out much earlier this year.
But it clearly has that sticking power because I know you guys have kept talking about it and kept playing it, and a lot of people seem to like it.
We're still playing it.
Yeah, it's a great game to play. We should just do like a marathon of it as soon as your finals are done.
Yeah,
just
and
blast
just really,
that game.
Yeah, no, and just get right through it because I do want to finish it before the year's over. But
All right. So moving on to best sports/racing game. Now, I think in most years this category actually has some contention. This year, I don't think there's going to be a lot of debate. Our nominees are F1 2021, FIFA 22, Forza Horizon 5, Hot Wheels Unleashed, and Riders Republic. FIFA and F1, I don't think have been particularly well received this year.
No.
FIFA is never particularly well received recently, but both of those games I don't think are in contention.
I feel like we said this last year. I still find it so bizarre how sports and racing is in the same category.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
It really shouldn't be.
This year, I feel like there's like enough racing games that they could have had their own category. I don't know.
It's also like they're definitely missing some sports games in here that could have been put here that probably were better.
They're missing this year's Madden. Where's Madden?
But I don't think Riders Republic is going to take it because of bad monetization. Critics don't like that. Not going to do it.
Hold on. Are you meaning to tell me that an Ubisoft game has bad monetization?
but like really
As
bad.
surprising
like,
as it is.
Surprisingly worse than most Ubisoft games.
They're usually
Lord.
I forgot who said this quote, but it's like they are avant-garde in their monetization scheme.
Very avant-garde. So I think you're left in this with Hot Wheels Unleashed and Forza Horizon 5.
Oh, it's a close tie in there.
I do think Hot Wheels
those
Unleashed
things.
was very well received for what it is.
Can we give that the most surprising game of the
Yeah.
year award?
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely my
don't
pick
think
for
anyone
surprise
had-
hit of the year.
I don't think anyone had any faith in the Hot Wheels racing game whatsoever.
No one cared about it until it came out. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was suddenly good. So yeah, Hot Wheels is there. I don't think it's going to beat Forza. I Snowball's chance in hell maybe, but Forza Horizon 5 was incredibly well received. It's technically the highest scoring game this entire year on Metacritic so far.
Yeah.
So it's the only game to break over a 9 right now. So
Painful.
this is pretty easy to call. Unless there's an upset and Hot Wheels wins, Forza's taking this home easily.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Which
to me.
I don't know if I'd be super upset about it. I know that's not what upset means. I was trying to do a play on words. Anyway.
Yeah.
You did it, not me.
All right, so then we have the other confusing mishmash of categories. Best sim and strategy.
Every year, man. It's so stupid.
This
I
is
don't
the
know
one
why.
that really gets me this year because there were so many sim games and so many strategy games that came out this year. Totally could have been 2 categories, right?
Mhm.
No reason to put these together, and especially no reason to include Inscription.
I don't know why it's here. It doesn't make any sense.
It should be
I
in
don't know
horror.
why I don't know why it's there, but I feel like it's going to win.
So
I feel like
let's go through the
Inscription is going to
nominees
win that.
first. Age of Empires 4, yeah, deserves to be there. Evil Genius 2, World Domination, Humankind, Inscription, and Microsoft Flight Simulator.
What a category.
Now, is
Flight Simulator win last
hang on.
year?
I think it did.
Is Humankind the ape game?
No,
The
Humankind
monkey ape game?
is kind of like Civ, but it's more focused on like leaders over the course of history. It is a very cool game. It's on Game Pass as well. I think almost all of these games except
play it for a
Inscription
Game
are on
Pass?
Game Pass.
Thing at some point.
So all of these are options. I can't accurately call what a winner here is going to be, except my closest bet is probably Age of Empires, because
It's
that's
been
the
very
big
well
name.
received.
Microsoft Flight Simulator can't win 2 years in a row, right?
No, it's not good enough for 2 years. I don't know why it's here again. It doesn't make any sense.
Listen,
You can't
it's
win
not
2 years in
just
a
here.
row.
can't win 2 years in a row, plain and simple.
Oh, shut up.
Evil Genius 2 World Domination is still sitting at mixed on Steam and was not particularly well received, so that game isn't going to win.
Yeah.
Humankind, I don't know,
I haven't heard
maybe.
anything about it.
I feel like nobody's talked about this game at all, so I doubt it. Inscription is incredible and a really good game, extremely great. I talked about it for a Halloween episode because it's a horror game.
Yeah, it's not like I don't know why it's here because
It's here because it
belongs,
technically is a deck builder, right?
I guess, but
Which
like
is kind of a strategy.
But it's
Which
actually
then-
an escape room
They
game.
really have to
and-
stretch this far to get a 5th entry.
And they didn't, right? There were so many other sim games that went out the release this year.
Or
This
other strategy
did not
games,
need to be
I feel
here.
like.
Inscription
Like-
should 100% be in horror. But
it's what is there even a horror?
there may
category?
not be this year,
I
legitimately.
don't think there is.
No,
is
because Resident
painful.
Evil 8 isn't in a
Which is
horror
weird
type
because you could have put like
category.
Returnal in there too. You could have had some great.
I think
Returnal's
Takes
kind of
horror.
spooky sometimes.
parts
Yeah.
of Metroid Dread, I would say, are
Absolutely.
very like panicking and terrifying to play. But this is it's a shame because I would love Inscription to win because it's just such a cool game and I've heard so many cool things about it. I've seen so many cool things about it. Everybody seems to love it.
But like
it's
even
just
if it
the wrong
wins,
category.
it's just a weird category for it to
You
win.
could,
Exactly.
I mean, you could put the new GTA trilogy in horror game because it was horrific and all the characters look
Put it in
horrifying.
because it's simulating what it's like to be in hell. That works.
All right, so I'm gonna cut us off because we do need to start speeding through some of these lower categories so we have time for Game of the Year discussions. But I think pretty easy to call Age of Empires is gonna win this unless
Yeah.
Inscription comes out swinging with a baseball bat and somehow wins.
The kneecaps.
Great game, but should not be in this category. All right, moving past that, best family game. Here we got some more contention. So It Takes Two is up again for best family game. Mario Party Superstars, new Pokemon Snap, Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, WarioWare Get It Together.
It's almost
in
all
the
Nintendo
Nintendo
games
category.
again.
It Takes Two.
Yeah.
Year.
It Takes Two. After playing what we did, I'm gonna say It Takes Two should not be here.
No,
This would traumatize
yeah.
a child.
I'd love to see a child play it, but also,
adults.
I mean, well, also, what other? Of course, it's going to be dominated by Nintendo. Do you see Gearbox making a kids game?
Yeah, no one else made any other major family games this year.
I mean, Borderlands 3 was written by a child. You know,
I mean, that's a few years old. So yeah, I think this is also a very hard category to call because they're all Nintendo games. Nintendo's a
it's safe to say
award
Nintendo
darling.
will win the category.
Nintendo's gonna win the category.
If I was put at gunpoint to put one, which by the way, Ryan, you can get out of the corner of my room. I don't want to be at gunpoint anymore. God. I'd say Bowser's Fury.
Bowser's Fury is technically the best game on this list, I think.
Yeah.
Not by a significant margin, though, because I believe all of these games have been well received. I haven't played Superstars or Pokemon Snap. WarioWare Get It Together is excellent.
Is
I feel
it
like
really
Pokemon
called
Snap
New
is too
Pokemon
limited.
Snap? Is
Yes,
it really
it
called
is.
New Pokemon?
It is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's the same people, the same overlords that released New Super Mario Brothers to the world.
Or the new
Wyatt, are you-
3DS?
It's yeah.
God.
Because I have not touched any of these. I just know my brother and my parents currently right now are playing Mario Party upstairs above me. So if there's been screaming, that's why. But I like because here's the thing, and I know that It Takes Two is like a great game, but it's family. Not only do I think this should be kid friendly, it's family specifically. So that to me means that, and I'm talking about like personal choice here. I think like critically, it's
Yeah.
going to be different. But like the whole, as much of the family as possible should be able to play with you.
Which really
and
limits
for-
this
I
to
agree.
Mario Party and WarioWare.
It does, and that's what I'm gonna say is that because Pokemon Snap is one player, right? That's it.
Yeah, one player.
Maybe
Maybe
why is it a
there might
family
be
game?
a split screen mode. I'm not sure, but I don't think so.
So wait, is family? Hold on, best appropriate for family to play.
It's
I feel
another
like family is synonymous with party game. Honestly,
It does say
Kind
best
of.
game appropriate for family play, which does tell me that I think they want this to be a multiplayer game.
Even
it's-
then, I'd say
yeah.
I don't know if Takes Two really fits that.
So,
That
I don't.
category.
Yeah, I don't think so.
no,
Yeah.
it doesn't. Yeah,
thematically, absolutely not.
my little brother, he's a kid. He doesn't care. He'll play Mario Party no matter what. But from people with adult thinking brains, I've heard that this Mario Party is not particularly very fun to play. And I've heard the exact opposite about WarioWare. So I'm just gonna go from hearsay and say that WarioWare is pretty based and should take the cake
Having
on this
played
category.
WarioWare, it is very good. I think the critic darling here is still going to be It Takes Two.
Yeah, which
Because
is weird.
that's the thing to me. I don't know if it's going to win
It's
twice.
my game of the year, but like I don't know if it'll win. This.
Yeah,
I don't know if it
so
should be in this category.
it's just a weird category. I'm going to go with Brett for this because I don't want to think too hard about it and give myself brain damage and say WarioWare is going to win.
I mean, watching you play WarioWare gave me brain damage. I
It
think.
was incredible. It's an incredible experience.
And
I-
weirdly, I don't mean that as a bad thing.
Yeah, it is the embodiment of an ADHD video game. Good for kids,
If you
though.
want to know what it's like for us out there, give WarioWare a try.
It's like
You'll
rhythm heaven,
understand.
but for people without rhythm.
All right, so we'll go for WarioWare, which means we're moving on to my category, baby. It is best
Yeah, This
fighting
is all you.
for best game design, primarily around head-to-head combat. Nominees are Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, The Hinokami Chronicles,
Zoom tight.
Demon Slayer, Kimetsu yo Yaiba, The Hinokami Chronicles.
Good job.
It's such a long
Rolls.
name.
It's
It just
listed
rolls off
twice.
the tongue.
It's not listed twice. It is listed twice, actually.
It is. That's the
okay.
name of the team behind it, I guess.
So
Oh,
the team behind this, I know, is not that. I believe it is it's C3 something is their name. They did the Naruto games a while back.
Blood?
Melty Blood is also
Melty
very good.
Blood.
So then we have Guilty
Melty
Gear
Blood?
Strive, Melty Blood Type
Sure.
Lumina, Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl, and Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown. Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown is like a 10-year-old game that just got re-released.
Yeah.
Cut that from the list.
That's
Not on the list.
Get it out of here.
Demon Slayer, cool game. It's not a competitive fighting game. Cut that from the list. All right, those two are gone. Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl. A lot of people probably like this game, but it's worse than Smash. Cut it from the list.
Oof.
All right.
Oof.
I mean, it was never going to be better or as good as
Melty Blood Type Lumina is an excellent fighting game, but nobody in this panel has played a Melty Blood game.
Nobody on Earth.
And
Melty Blood is infamous.
now.
So Melty
And you know what?
Blood has an interesting story because Melty Blood has been at every Evo, but is almost always in like a corner. And there was one where it was in a bathroom. There was one where it was in a
What?
parking lot outside. The finals of Melty Blood were played on a laptop in a parking lot.
It's absolutely awesome.
Because Melty Blood has
More like
the
fleshy
most
blood.
dedicated fan base of fighting game people ever. Like if you like Melty Blood, you love Melty Blood. So those people always play Melty Blood. And I'm
That's the
sure they love the new
grungiest
game,
Game
but the
Origin story
critics have
ever.
not played the new Melty Blood. Nobody has. Guilty Gear Strive's going to win this.
It has
Yeah.
to, yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
0%
I-
chance anything wins this aside from that.
I've been watching so many of my friends play it, and so many of them have also been like, "Hey, if you ever want to, it's like super like beginner friendly for fighting
not.
games. It's really
It is.
well,
You just got to
um,
bash your head into it hard enough.
it's a fighting game exactly. If you have to go in expecting.
It's like expecting an MMO to be user friendly. If it's user friendly, it's defeating the point of the game
yeah.
to a certain degree.
Hotsu,
Yeah.
Hotsu, and I cannot stress this enough. Geki.
Dotsugeki. All right. That's the
know
dolphin
what's-
attack.
You know what's truly horrible?
What?
Is that there's going to be a category later on that this isn't in, and that category is soundtrack, and that's absolutely insulting.
You know what? I get it because it's a very small soundtrack, and there are like a couple of songs that are hit or miss this time because they're
The way
worse
that
than the
this-
last game.
The way that this game gets described to me extremely often is that, oh my god, they gave you a free video game with this incredible metal soundtrack, and that, like it's just it's so good.
All right.
It's how people reacted to Tron Legacy.
It is
Wow,
a
what
great soundtrack.
Daft Punk album attached to this movie.
It's true. Moving on to best role playing. So this year was actually pretty anemic with role playing games. We didn't get a lot of role playing
Joke
games.
category.
Interesting.
So our first nominee, Cyberpunk 2077. 'Cause it- you know, Cyberpunk's not winning. I'm not gonna hold on to it. Look, Wyatt and I like Cyberpunk legitimately,
I really
the story.
Cyberpunk.
but
like
as
the
a role
gameplay.
playing game against the rest of these games, no chance.
It's the only one I've played, so it's the only one I can really comment on. So I'm just gonna be quiet for this entire section.
What are we talking about making a role-playing game that this has no chance with? Is it the bugs and things that it's taking it out of the
Yeah,
running for?
it is. It is
Okay.
still buggy. It still doesn't have its next gen patch yet. If it wins, you know,
There's
the
something
only
wrong.
reason I could see Cyberpunk winning is that none of the rest of these games are technically like hardcore Western RPGs.
Yeah.
But I still don't think it's going to win. Monster Hunter Rise, I also don't think is going to win this category because it's Monster Hunter.
It's not really a role-playing
Yeah, it
game.
doesn't fit the role-playing moniker as much as it would. It's an excellent game, but in this category, shouldn't win. Scarlet
Ooh,
Nexus, also not a role-playing game.
I haven't played Scarlet
It feels
Nexus or
like
Tales
this-
of Arise.
It feels like when they say role playing, they say, "Oh, there's numbers."
It's
that
yeah.
you, like,
That-
change
that's what a
with
lot
your
of people.
But like
seem to do.
Scarlet Nexus is an action game, like far
Yeah.
more at home in the
Play
action
the
category.
demo, and that's an action game.
It maybe could win this, but I don't think so because I think the real frontrunners here are Shin Megami Tensei 5 and Tales of Arise, the other two nominees. I could see it going either way for these. Both of them were very well received. Both of them are great games. I've played both of them. I think the critic darling is probably going to be Shin Megami Tensei
Oh, really?
Hope so.
because it is a game franchise that's related to Persona. Not because of anything Shin Megami Tensei does unique,
Oh.
but my critic mind of what is the mainstream appeal here. It's an interesting game that isn't Cyberpunk and is related to Persona. I think a
Yeah.
lot of critics might vote for it solely based on that fact.
You're unfortunately probably very accurate on that statement.
As much as I like
think-
Shin Megami Tensei.
I
Shin Megami
think-
Tensei doesn't have Keanu Reeves. Okay.
as far as you know.
I'm going to be the one to say, because I know that many other people also feel this way, that I would be even more insulted than I was by The Last of Us 2's victory last year if Cyberpunk was the one that won this category. Because
would
I
agree.
think there's like that would be so tone deaf and so out of touch of the industry, because even if Cyberpunk had like the best, like just like super great, like bottom line, like even better than like something like one of the classics like System Shock 2 or like Deus Ex, like the best RPG element, is if it's that buggy, no one's gonna care about that anyway, because the only thing that people are gonna think about is how broken it is. And from what I've heard from so many people and watched them play, is that the role playing is like good in parts, like the story is great, but like role playing and the like character progression, different like classes and builds you could do, and number crunching isn't that expansive compared to what you could do in other role-playing games. Granted, like, this wasn't a great year for role-playing.
Yeah, I also can't really think of
Cyberpunk.
anything that's...
And we've also agreed on this show before that Cyberpunk is much more of a immersive sim than it is an RPG.
Yeah.
I think it makes a much stronger case in that genre than it does an RPG.
It's an immersive sim right now.
I mean, it's really, it's in that first-person
out.
shooter category. It tries to be more of an immersive sim than it does an RPG, and the RPG stuff starts to fall apart when you look too deep, so...
Yeah. You can really break the game.
I would say if the Cyberpunk...
use the starting pistol and one-shot people.
Not anymore. You could.
What? You can't anymore?
I don't think so. I think it's fixed.
That was my favorite build.
I could be wrong. Keep that in mind. But I do know there's been a couple of bug fixing patches. Cyberpunk could be eligible for this if the expansion came out, right? Like Witcher 3, Blood and Wine and whatnot came out and it was back up for an award. I'd be fine with that. But there has been no content addition to this game. There's been minor bug fixes on the PC version for the most part. The consoles are still kind of in limbo, and then the expansion's not coming out until like at least next year.
I honestly think that there might not be any new content for Cyberpunk.
Well, they've confirmed there's going to be an expansion. We know there is.
Well, they've also said
until like after.
See, you say that
2024.
You say that, but they've also said like, yeah, we're gonna stop doing like support for the game to focus on the expansion more. So their focus is shifting. Yeah.
Well, okay. So let me confirm this because there's a lot of confusion here. There's a lot of confusion here, and I want to make sure we're not spreading misinformation. So what happened is there was a Cyberpunk CD Projekt Red did an earnings call at some point and released a statement last month detailing their process for coming back from Cyberpunk's utter garbage launch. They've confirmed that we are getting the next gen patches and the final like giant patch fixes by March, or in the March to May area of next year. The start of the fiscal year. It's Q1 of next fiscal year. And then we will be getting a major expansion in the style of Hearts of Stone or Blood and Wine coming soon after that. So it's in the works. We know it exists. We don't know what that's going to look like.
It's ready when it's ready.
Yeah.
Or is it?
When it's ready.
All right. So with that, let's move on to Best Action Adventure. This is another category they just decided to throw platformers in here.
Well, what does action adventure even mean as a genre? It's so vague. It
is
so vague.
Because like action is its own category, right? Adventure is its own category. I don't know about you, but when I think action adventure, I usually think like Guardians of the Galaxy is probably a good pick.
Yeah.
I think like Uncharted, that vein of like shooter adventure games, or an action adventure game, right? I don't think Metroid Dread.
Third person, there's parkour, there's things like that. Third person parkour shooting.
So let's go through the nominees. We have Guardians of the Galaxy, Metroid Dread, Psychonauts 2, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, and Resident Evil Village. All of these are great games.
Yes.
None of these, except for I think Guardians of the Galaxy, deserves to be in this category.
Yeah.
I mean, Ratchet and Clank is primarily a platformer, but if we're trying to define like an action adventure game, it fits.
It probably fits more than like Resident Evil or Metroid Dread, right?
Yes, I'd agree with that.
So I think off the bat, we have to take out Metroid Dread and Resident Evil because they should not be in this category.
Is Resident Evil a survival game?
Resident Evil is like
survival
horror.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a horror adventure game. If you even want to give it the adventure moniker.
It is more action oriented than 7 was, to be fair, but it still primarily has its roots in horror.
Yeah, it's just weird to see it next to Guardians of the Galaxy, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not a fitting category. The Metroid Dread is a side-scrolling Metroidvania with horror elements. It's not a action. Technically, I guess any game can be an action adventure game, right?
There's
so
action.
It fits under that moniker.
That's why this category is so frustrating.
Exactly.
It's so confusing because any of these games could critically win this. I don't know what's going to take it home. My bet would be Guardians of the Galaxy is the most fitting for this award.
It fits the best.
What I'm struggling with is because, like, I mean, the two I'm going to pick are the only two that I've played on this list, which is Guardians of the Galaxy and Ratchet and Clank. Overall, I enjoyed my time with Guardians more, but if we're going by like, best action game, I would say that Ratchet and Clank had better combat, it had better action in it.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's kind of the toss up for me. Like I enjoyed Guardians more because it had a really good story, but in terms of what was a better action game, I would give it to Ratchet and Clank because it had
I think what's
combat.
really going to decide this category is what wins Game of the Year. Because I think whatever doesn't win Game of the Year is going to win this. Will be my bet.
Right.
Because a lot of these games are also up for Game of the Year. Psychonauts 2.
Almost all of these.
Yeah, almost all of them.
Is...
Psychonauts 2, I think, is probably the most likely, aside from Guardians, I think, to win, because that game is like wish fulfillment for people for 10 years. And it came out and it was excellent.
This category or Game of the Year?
This category.
Yeah.
I would also say that for Game of the Year, but I think Game of the Year has more direct competition with it. Ratchet and Clank, great game, but this category is so hard to parse.
Yeah.
Because it's nonsensical. There's nonsensical
no way that
category.
Resident Evil Village and Ratchet and Clank should be in a category.
They should never be. No.
There's no
way. Comedy.
Unless they both did like
Evil
really good things with like accessibility or like sound or something, but not in the same like genre category.
Something more like
yeah. Metroid Dread deserves an award, but this is a weird one to give it, right?
It would be sad.
I don't think it's gonna win because it's a weird award. So this is just one of the ones that's like, I think of the 5 games here, probably Guardians of the Galaxy, Psychonauts, or Ratchet and Clank are the 3 that we're front running. Probably Guardians being the top one because it fits the category the most, but that game was also, some people didn't like the combat, so maybe that'll knock it down. We'll see.
Boy howdy.
All right, best action game. And now this one to me is even more confusing.
Because
they're all shooters. Well, Chivalry is still technically a first-person shooter.
It is first-person, yeah. You're right.
So it's a first-person swinger.
Why isn't this an FPS category? Do we have an FPS category?
We'll get to it if we get to it, but
not sure.
This is nonsensical. All right, so our nominees are Back 4 Blood, Chivalry 2, Deathloop, Far Cry 6, and Returnal. Far Cry 6, I don't think was well received enough to win anything here. That's out of the list. Same with Back 4 Blood.
I really hope Chivalry 2 gets it.
Chivalry 2, I think, could get it because I think a lot of people like Chivalry. I do wonder if the controversy with the lead guy who got fired from Torn Banner might impact them winning something here. I doubt it because he did get fired. So like that situation got resolved. But I think a lot of people are probably gonna think about that when they're voting and maybe get a little iffy. I also think Returnal might be a front runner for this category.
I think so.
I've played both Deathloop and Returnal because those are probably my top 2 picks if we're trying to somehow narrow this.
Returnal fits the action category the most of these games.
Here's my thing with Deathloop. It's a very personal thing, but it's my personal view, so I'm just gonna run with it. The only reason I didn't get farther in Deathloop than I did is because I played on controller, and I still stand by the fact that it's one of the worst controls for an FPS on a controller that I've ever used. I hated it, and I'm someone that grew up on an Xbox and grew up with like Call of Duty and Halo, it's like I'm used to FPS on controllers. I've never played FPS controls this clunky and terrible in my opinion. I hated it. And so I have to go with Returnal because Returnal felt great on the same controller. I played them both
And just
on PS5.
to make this fair playing ground, I never played FPSs on controllers aside from Halo. Halo's the only FPS I've ever played on a controller, really. I played Deathloop on my PS5 with a controller, had no issues. I will say I didn't particularly like the control scheme. It's not a control scheme that I think was great, and the aiming was a little weird. You had to like snap aim basically all the time. So
it just felt like the response curve on the thumbsticks was completely.
Well, I never aimed with the thumbstick really. What I did is I aimed like very loosely and then would just pump the trigger to lock on and then shoot someone, right? Deathloop was a forgiving enough game that I never had an issue with it, but I get where you're coming from. I don't think it's as bad as you're making them out to be.
Well, the reason I hated it so much is because there were so many cool, weird things I wanted to do in terms of like cool, like combat encounters or something, and I feel like I couldn't do it because of the controls, not because of my skill.
I mean, we also talked about that, and you did say you were kind of worried to try to do them because of the way the game has like the death system handled. Where you would have to replay content.
That's part of it, but when I did try things, they just didn't work.
And I'll say, when I did try things, most of the time they worked. The two sides to it here.
Anyway.
I don't think, I do agree with you, I don't think it's going to win this, though.
Returnal played like a dream on controller, and it ran like a dream, and it's a great game.
And it's also the only real action game here. It's not a first-person shooter.
I mean, I'd say Back 4 Blood is like an action game.
It's a first-person shooter,
which is technically every first-person shooter is an action game. But why would you put them in this category?
Yeah,
I see. I chalk that up more to just the category being vague than Back 4 Blood not.
This is a bad category. It's a bad category.
It's not Back 4 Blood's fault. Is what I'm saying.
It's like a best action game. You should be putting. When I think best action game, I usually think of like Melee is what comes to mind.
I thought of
a lot, or third person
for an action game,
or Scarlet Nexus.
Scarlet Nexus, yeah, Scarlet Nexus should have been here. Returnal deserves to be here, but like maybe Far Cry 6 because of the weird actiony elements in that. Deathloop shouldn't be here. Back 4 Blood feels weird. A lot of these are just strange picks. Move on to our next category: best VR AR. So our nominees here: Hitman 3, I Expect You to Die 2, Lone Echo 2, Resident Evil 4, Sniper Elite VR.
I'm just gonna say this: I don't own a VR headset, so I can't.
Yeah, I can't comment for medical reasons.
I've played none of these games except for the first I Expect You to Die, which is really good. But I think my critic mindset, having not played most of these games, they're gonna see Resident Evil and they're gonna vote for it.
Maybe, yeah, because
especially because it's 4 of all the Resident Evil games. It's 4, and that's the one people really go crazy over.
Because I think Hitman 3, from what I heard, is a better experience playing with a controller, just regularly. So I don't think that's gonna win. I Expect You to Die 2 is a smaller game by a smaller studio, really good game, I'm sure, because the first one is excellent. But I doubt a lot of critics have played it. Lone Echo 2 I haven't heard of, so I can't judge it. Sniper Elite VR. Sniper Elite has never been a super high up franchise for awards.
They've usually been a pretty good time. I think I remember playing 3, and it was pretty cool.
I just don't think they have. I don't think they have ever won an award.
No, never.
So never. I wouldn't see them here. So completely based on no information aside from the Resident Evil words and the title, Resident Evil 4 is going to win this.
It's so weird that they have this as a category when we're still in that era where there's maybe like only once in a blue moon does a Half-Life Alyx come out. Like it's like duh, that's gonna win. It's like that is up here, and like not because they suck, but because VR is still such like it's in its infancy still as a way to play games. Like everything else is just down here. And this year we don't have something that obvious because we're just kind of in like the lower middle area where nothing's pushing the medium. It feels good. That's cool. But like, I haven't heard buzz around any of these except Resident Evil 4 VR. I know Resident Evil 4 VR. Wow. That's like it.
All right. So let's move on to innovation and accessibility. Our nominees for this one: Far Cry 6, Forza Horizon 5, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, and The Veil: Shadow of the Crown. I think we can cut Far Cry 6 immediately.
Yep.
Yes.
The game doesn't do much for accessibility.
I've played 2 of the games on these lists. I remember them having like fairly decent accessibility. I mean, it's like once like Last of Us 2 is out and it has the most insane accessibilities menu ever, it just trounces everything. So it's hard to like. I don't know. I remember both Guardians and Ratchet and Clank having a fair amount of options.
Yeah. I have a question. Is The Veil is the one where I forget?
So The Veil is a game that is played entirely by audio. Basically,
you're playing a blind woman.
Yeah,
and it's a combat game.
I think, and
an adventure game.
Yeah, that's why I feel like that might be like the most obvious pick for this, just because without it might not like it's a unique case where it's not that it has like so much accessibility options to get someone.
It just is accessible.
It's exactly it's accessible, and
its core gameplay is accessible.
It's and it makes an issue that is pretty like common as far as these sorts of things go, like. It makes it able to be experienced by people who normally do not have to deal with that, and it makes it gamified and makes it interesting. And I think that's what the category should be about, and none of these other games do that.
I think Veil being on this list means it's going to win. Is my bet. I think of the other games, Guardians of the Galaxy has the best accessibility menu that I recall. Unless I'm forgetting something about Ratchet and Clank.
It's been a while since I played Ratchet.
I remember Ratchet and Clank had some options. I don't think they were as extensive as Guardians of the Galaxy.
It's a Sony game, which means that they have like a good accessibility menu. Like,
and Forza Horizon has some options, but I don't think they were anywhere near as extensive as Guardians, and especially not Veil being.
If I could put my tinfoil hat on for a second. This category is presented by Chevrolet, and I do wonder if Chevrolet has any vehicles in Forza.
Oh no!
And so that's why Forza's here.
I don't think that's gonna
Forza.
happen.
I haven't no, not that they're gonna win, but I wonder if that's why Forza's here.
That's
I haven't played Forza,
well,
so I can't comment on whether
of the games that I've played this year, Forza did have one of the more extensive accessibility menus, so I do think it probably is here legitimately.
It just when I see the Chevrolet logo, exactly. I'm like,
all right, really funny. I see that. Okay, so we're gonna. I think our pick for that is The Veil.
Yep.
Let's move on to best community support. So this is not about the game. This is about recognizing a game for outstanding community support, transparency, and responsiveness. Includes social media and game updates patches. Apex Legends.
Any contest.
Destiny 2.
Why this is the one
Fortnite. No Man's Sky, and Final Fantasy 14 Online.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I think there's been a mistake. I see a Destiny 2 on this list here.
Yeah. I see 4 nominees that look like they should not be.
Yeah, it's not even like they were just they did a good job.
Maybe No Man's Sky. Maybe No Man's Sky.
That's been like.
But that how many times in a row have we given the award for them to
how many times in a row does it deserve it?
Well, yeah, but this year hasn't been as.
I mean, this isn't most improved. This is community support, and I have to say, Final Fantasy 14 has been extremely transparent about every single thing happening. Yep. We have had 3 updates already in the first 3 days about the server congestion and whatnot. They're giving out, because of the servers being congested, everyone's gotten an additional week of playtime added to their accounts to make up for the fact that launch was so crowded. So already, I think that community is just constantly responding, or those community representatives are incredibly responsive.
What do you mean they have an extra week of playtime?
So anyone with a paid sub that is playing on the launch date of Windwalker, so December 7th through the next week, is going to get a free 7 days of playtime added to make up for launch being congested.
Why is Destiny 2 on this list?
Because of the TWAB
on this list.
That's why. The main reason Destiny 2 is on here is because of the TWAB. Because they have those weekly updates all the time, where they have the huge community letters.
Wait, what did you say, Ryan?
I just said they're there to fill the spots out. Because like I recognize that Bungie does do the community updates every week. So rarely do they ever act on the information they present in those updates.
It's
so
very
rarely.
like we've heard your complaints, and that's it.
It's like
rough.
I like honestly like better than some of these games. I honestly think that Halo Infinite's done a better job, which doesn't count. But like that's really
they're starting to get worse at it.
Oh, they're getting worse. But I mean, adding a fix within
Halo
2 days
Infinite,
is way better than adding a fix never. Destiny
Halo
2.
Infinite is like 2 steps forward, 2 steps backwards.
Yes.
It's the best way to describe
it. And I will say
Destiny 2 is one game forwards.
We are definitely biased against Fortnite.
Yes.
None of us are familiar with Fortnite's update process. Fortnite could win this, and I will act upset, but I won't be upset because I don't know Fortnite.
I know that they just had this giant like some sort of like co-op thing that just
that is
came
the
out
extent of our knowledge of Fortnite.
No. There's another crucial piece of information. The Rock was in it.
I know.
Oh
yeah.
Man,
and Spider-Man now.
I think Fortnite mostly, in terms of like their social media like updating process and like their community support, from what I understand, is just like new characters out, new cosmetic is out, and they do it often enough where that's the community interaction.
Well, I guess also they're removing Travis Scott things from it.
Yeah.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Makes sense. I do think of these though. I think the sheer amount of publicity Final Fantasy has gotten from World of Warcraft being bad is going to cause it to win this category.
Yeah.
I would not be upset if No Man's Sky won. I don't know anything about Fortnite, so I cannot confirm anything about that.
You were coming here looking for some biting Fortnite commentary from the four of us.
Apex and Destiny just have not been doing great.
No.
Best mobile game. So we got Genshin Impact, League of Legends Wild Rift, Marvel Future Revolution, Pokemon Unite, and Fantasian.
Can I pick none?
Fantasian.
Can I abstain?
Fantasian should win this.
Fantasian's the one that deserves to be on a place where people actually play video games.
Because Fantasian doesn't play like a mobile game. It plays like a JRPG.
Yeah.
I do wonder. I think League of Legends, Genshin, and Pokemon all have chances to win this. I don't think the Marvel game is going to win.
From what I mean, I'm not plugged into the League of Legends anything, but I did hear that Wild Rift was like a good translation of League of Legends.
Because it's not 1-to-1. That's the important thing. Is it's a specifically for mobile version of the game, so it does play.
And I heard it was translated quite well, considering.
Genshin Impact is just super popular. I don't think. I think that game is going to win based on popularity. If it wins, it's going to be like enough of them play it that it's going to win.
What even is Marvel Revolution? Whatever. Hold on.
No clue.
What even
I don't think it's going to win.
Is it like a team clicker? Hold on.
I think so. Yeah.
It's one of the many Marvel mobile games.
I think it's Raid Shadow Legends with a Marvel skin.
Oh, great.
Yeah, the only legitimate like award-winning worthy game here is probably Fantasian.
In terms of substance.
But does that make it better for mobile games? Probably doesn't really matter. So we'll see. That one's hard to predict. All right, moving on to best indie. Now this is another category that gets very weird. 12 Minutes is that game that we've seen at the Game Awards for the last like 5 years. We got Death's Door, which is a cool like isometric hack and slash style like Hyper Light Drifter kind of exploration game. Inscription, which we talked about Inscription earlier. Kena Bridge of Spirits, talked about that earlier, and Loop Hero. This is one I cannot call what's going to win this. I
gotta rep my girl Kena.
I know you gotta rep your girl Kena.
Game I played on this list.
I am gonna say I don't think Kena is gonna win this because it is by far the highest budget game here, by like order of magnitude. So I think they're gonna knock that against it here and be like, it feels more AA than it does indie. Whereas the rest of these are definitely indie games, like Death's Door. It
definitely looks AAA.
Yeah, it looks AAA. I feel like the rest of these, aside from, I think 12 Minutes is also not going to win, because 12 Minutes was not received all that well.
No, yeah.
And it had a very, very expensive cast for ostensibly no reason.
feel like Indies had a pretty strong year, so some of the picks here are kind of peculiar.
It's over. I would like
yeah.
easily Sable over like 12 minutes.
This is one that it feels odd that Sable and Valheim aren't here.
I'd put Sable and Valheim over 12 minutes and Death's Door, and I'm someone who liked Death's Door. It just didn't do it. It did the like Link to the Past but isometric like style of game very well, and that's just kind of it. It was really good, but I don't think it's like best indie game ever or anything.
No, I mean I feel the same way about Kana. Like
it's
great game,
solid,
but I just don't think it fits the indie category.
It's solid gameplay and visuals, but it's not exceptional by any means.
Yeah, it's Kana. It is made up a lot by like this is a first time game from an animation studio, which is which is impressive in and of itself. But yeah, best indie, it doesn't really fit the category.
It's just so much higher budget, and it has like Sony money behind it and marketing it.
Well,
so.
it was an Epic Store exclusive on PC as well, so they probably got a chunk of change from Epic to do that as well. So
Loop Hero, because I think I'm the only one that's played Loop Hero here. Loop Hero is a super interesting, like tactics, like I think it's supposed to be like a 2-bit style. Very, very fun, very interesting. I don't think it's gonna win because I don't think enough people have played it. Would be my bet here. I feel like this is probably the least played game on this list. I think Inscription. I think Inscription might take away with this.
Looking at Loop Hero, it's that weird type of gritty pixel art that I'm not too big of a fan of.
Oh, I love it.
See, I loved it. I think Loop Hero's style is great. And hey, the games don't have to be for everyone. Inscription, I think of these is the most visually unique and the most striking from the presentations it's been in.
Mm-hmm.
So I would bet that's going to win, though I think if Kana wins, it's because I think most of the critics probably didn't play the other games, which is fair, right?
Wait, are they allowed to not do that?
Well, because like you can't play all these
other games.
Nobody has enough time in the year to play every game on this.
But if you're voting on it, you should play all the candidates.
I mean,
you'd think.
Think about it this way: if you're one of the judges, right, and then all the nominees are out, right? It's like you don't have enough time by the time this is all being put together to play all of those things and really look at it with like a critical eye.
What probably happens, because from my understanding, the way the panel works is that every outlet has a vote, essentially, or a set of votes, and they distribute them according to group agreement within the outlet. So what likely happens is a discussion between people that have played, like, one person might have played Inscription, one person might have played Kana, and then everyone discusses and tries to pick a person to give that vote to. I don't know if that's exactly how that works, but that was how it was described a while back to me. So if that is the case, I think Inscription has a good chance of winning because of how unique it is compared to the rest of these games, which don't really have a lot of like surprises in store gameplay wise. If not, I think Kana's going to win based on more people having played it. Not saying that as a knock on Kana's quality, but I think most of the other games here are way more niche than Kana is.
Yeah.
To a very significant degree. Any other thoughts?
I think just in general, even again, not having played any of these besides Death's Door, just Inscription is kind of what I think of these days when I think of indie, where it's like we talked about it before, how it definitely didn't fit into like a sim. It's like it's horror, but like what other it has like the card thing in it. It's kind of an escape room. It's so like beyond genre.
You can't categorize it easily.
Exactly. It's indie. Like 12-minute. How many like this is like how many cinematic like detective-y games, like there's so many other things like it. There's so many other things like Death's Door where it's the same kind of genre. There's a lot of, it might not look as nice, but a lot of other games that are the same kind of like gameplay and feel as Kana. And there are a lot of things that are the same style and close to the similar thing as Loop Hero. I think Inscription has the most unique like gameplay style, like way of being a game compared to everything here. And I think that like if you're gonna go on it off of like independence, then I personally, for me,
indie style and creativity, then Inscription definitely deserves to take it. All right, moving on to best ongoing. So Apex Legends, Fortnite, Genshin Impact, Call of Duty Warzone, and Final Fantasy 14 Online.
Wow, I wonder which one Ryan's gonna vote for.
But really, though,
is anyone going to disagree with me though?
No one will, because like that, like even with like the huge new content stuff that like Fortnite's getting, like, is it really going to beat the absolutely just like insane year that 14 has had? No,
and look,
it's
having
not.
played the first, like, having played basically just Endwalker for the last 3 days, I am already so impressed with the expansion that there was a cutscene of people eating a burger that had me tearing up. Nothing else happened. They ate a burger, but it was so well directed, and there was such a nice moment that I was tearing up. And all they were doing is eating a burger.
That's beautiful.
So
I think I'm just gonna say this: Call of Duty should not be here because it feels like every time they update something. Like, do you remember when they tried to integrate Cold War and Warzone together? It was a mess. It was
what I'm confused about is like
disaster.
I'm confused why Final Fantasy is the only MMO in here. Because we have like 3 other big MMOs that have had pretty good years. Guild Wars 2 and ESO have had good years. So
you know
I'm
what?
confused why they're not here.
Throw No Man's Sky back in here. It probably had better updates than Fortnite did or Apex.
Warzone, yeah.
So I think this is going to either Final Fantasy 14 or Fortnite. I don't think people like Genshin enough to give it this award, even though Genshin is a fun like free to play game. It's kind of had its time in the spotlight for critics, I think. So I see this, unless something weird happens, going to Final Fantasy, unless there is an insane amount of Fortnite fans that I don't know.
Unless this category is brought to you by either Epic Games or Activision, I think Final Fantasy 14 is gonna take it.
All right. So next is games for impact. So these are games that have a pro-social meaning or message. We have Before Your Eyes, Boyfriend Dungeon, Chicory, A Colorful Tale, Life is Strange, True Colors, and No Longer Home.
I haven't played a single one of these.
I haven't played any of these.
So I've only played Chicory, and from what I played of Chicory, I would say it deserves to win, but I can't say that because I haven't played any of the others.
I kind of want to play Boyfriend Dungeon because I've seen a couple of things from him.
Boyfriend Dungeon is on my list of games to play because it does look hilarious. Before Your Eyes, I've seen a bit of things about. No Longer Home looks up my alley. Life is Strange. I don't know why it's here. Feels like that would fit better in a narrative category. I think it is in the narrative category. But
we talked about this a bit before, but I'm just tired of the Life is Strange games.
Getting fatigued.
I do know that like Deck 9 or Life is Strange games usually have very if I could use the website's own verbiage here, pro-social meaning or messages. They usually weave those into their narratives quite a bit. So from what I understand of Deck 9's work, it makes sense.
Well, you're also talking about how it's written like a YA novel.
Well, that was the original Life is Strange. So there is a different development team behind the new one. It is not Don't Nod. So Don't Nod was the company that did the original Life is Strange. Deck 9 was involved in its development, but was not the primary developer. Now Deck 9 is the sole developer. So it's hard to call with this. I think especially with none of us having played it, I don't want to hash, especially because everyone I know that has played the second Life is Strange, or not the second, but Life is Strange True Colors has had a lot of good things to say about it compared to the first game. Even a few people I know that didn't like the first game. So I don't feel comfortable bashing it for writing that none of us have seen. But yeah, I can't predict a winner for this. I don't think Boyfriend Dungeon is going to win solely based on the name. As much as I like the concept of Boyfriend Dungeon, I don't think it's going to win in the critics' eyes.
Did you run into some sort of controversy earlier this year?
Oh, no.
That was a different game.
It was?
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
I don't believe that was Boyfriend Dungeon.
Okay.
And I am biased for Boyfriend Dungeon because I know one of the developers. Very nice. But we worked with them in Montreal. Nice. All right. So, best performance. Moving on past that. We have Erica Mori as Alex Chen in Life is Strange True Colors. Giancarlo Esposito as Anton Castillo in Far Cry 6. Jason Kelly as Colt Vaughn in Deathloop. Maggie Robertson as Lady Dimitrescu in Resident Evil Village. Ozioma, I'm gonna butcher her name and I feel very bad about it. Ozioma Akaga as Juliana Blake in Deathloop.
This is a weird category.
It feels odd. I feel like one of the Guardians people probably should have been on this.
I was gonna say, one of the Guardians.
I feel like one of the
Drax.
people from
Please let it be Drax.
I feel like one of the people from Takes Two should have been on here. One of the main characters, because they both did such an incredible job.
I do think the ones that made the most impact on me, having played all the way through Deathloop, both of the Deathloop actors are phenomenal.
Yes, and it's also Giancarlo Esposito, so I'm going to assume he did a very good job.
Giancarlo Esposito did a great job, but is not a major character in the game enough to, I think, win this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think most of his acting is in the marketing and whatnot, and he's excellent. I don't think they're going to give it to him just because, like, Giancarlo Esposito doesn't need another award. He's fine. he's sitting pretty. Whereas Jason Kelly and Ozuyama Akaga, I think neither of them have anything under their belt.
I think that Lady Dimitrescu as a character had so much buzz that I could see Maggie Robinson or Robertson, excuse me, taking it. And
I don't want her winning for all the wrong reasons.
Well, from what I've heard, like when I've seen clips or trailers or whatever of the game, like she's done a good job. I don't think anyone on here. I mean, I haven't played Life is Strange, but I've at least seen all of these people in trailers or in games that I've played, and I don't think there's
all of them
any
are
bad
good
performers here.
I think my personal pick would probably be Juliana and Deathloop as my pick, just because I think her, especially during the ending, she is incredibly convincing. Very, very good character. But it's hard to call. I don't know who's going to take this home. Any other thoughts about that?
I did want to mention the two from Deathloop. Their performances were great because they were very like playful, if that makes sense. Like you could tell that I feel like the voice actors were having a lot of fun with their characters in the recording booth.
It sounds like they're playing off each other, even if they aren't, which is nice.
Yeah, they did a very good job of that.
Very hard to do that. All right, moving on to best audio design. We have Deathloop, Forza Horizon 5, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, Resident Evil Village, and Returnal.
I'm going to say it. Returnal had some amazing 3D audio and just sound design in general. I've only played 2 of the games on this 3 of the games on this list. I don't care. Returnal is just my automatic pick.
I've played everything but Village, and I'm going to say Returnal too. I think Returnal
was incredible.
We peaked early this year on audio.
I haven't played Returnal.
It was the first time for me where I really noticed like good directional audio in the game.
Yeah, I think if Deathloop's up for anything, it should be up for soundtrack, not audio. It feels different. I think Returnal is a pretty easy pick for this one, unless someone else has got a different thought here. No? All right, we can move on then.
I can't argue against it.
All right, best score and music: The Artful Escape, Cyberpunk 2077, Deathloop, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, and Nier Replicant version 1.22474487139.
Oh, Jesus.
DMD.
There is no reason Nier should not win this.
No, it's like I do not care. This is the only category that Nier is in, and I'm not even saying it just because of that. Nier soundtrack is just like the best game.
Brett, why wasn't Nier in best action game?
I don't know. My weird twisted justification that I'm sure, like, Jeff being the person that obviously picked all these games himself and didn't send it out to anyone else because it's Jeff's show.
And picked
Jeff
from
obviously
the Game Orchard.
From the soles of his shoes. I think the thing is that even though the gameplay is something that changed, like the game itself is in that like remaster territory where it's just kind of wishy-washy if you want to put it up as something completely new. The soundtrack is completely reorchestrated and rewritten and re-recorded and like everything. So that's my mental justification for why it wasn't in more places. Should it have been in action anyway because it was probably a better fit? Yeah,
because the combat was completely redone.
I'm going to assume that you guys are correct. I haven't played Nier. I haven't listened to the soundtrack, but I'm going to assume you guys are correct. But I will say the 3 that I have played here, which is Cyberpunk, Deathloop, Guardians, all had good scores. Like, I think... I'm not saying they're better, but I'm just saying...
I'm going to tell you right now why. After this podcast, go listen to a Nier combat track, just any one of them, and tell me your
Okay.
thoughts.
I'm going to just assume that you guys are correct, like I said, but I did like what I heard from.
And I am going to say I think the other game that has a big chance of winning here is Artful Escape, because I have heard that game is very, very music heavy and very much about music. I haven't played it yet, want to very much, but it is a game about a starving artist musician, so I assume that has very good music. I would not be upset if that won.
Now, we were talking about this before the camera started rolling, but this category technically also includes licensed tracks, which is by far the only reason Guardians of the Galaxy is here.
Absolutely.
Not to discredit the composer who did the actual score for it, because from what we heard, it was very nice and I liked it. Yeah. But it is the only reason it's here is because it's got Never Gonna Give You Up, it's got Don't Fear the Reaper, it's got all these classics.
And I think the main reason for me Guardians of the Galaxy shouldn't take it is because Guardians has very few moments in the story where a music track is playing that has emotional impact. Yeah. Right?
Except if Never Gonna Give You Up.
Unless you get lucky and get Rick Astley for the final boss, which is very fun.
Which is what happened with Ryan and I, and
which was great.
Beautiful. But I was like either that or Final Countdown.
And I got the other one, so it was still very good.
And I think Cyberpunk, great soundtrack. Cyberpunk was last year. Why is it on this list?
That's true.
Well, don't they include games that came out late in the year?
Yeah, they include November games. Cyberpunk is a weird pick for this.
I don't know anybody who still listens to the Cyberpunk soundtrack.
I do. I think it's real. I really like.
Yeah,
I'm not a dubstep hard music.
Cyberpunk person. Has like one track that I think is phenomenal, and the rest of them are just like pretty good. Mm-hmm. That one track with the violin burst in the middle, that's amazing. Plays all the time. Great track, but Nier absolutely deserves to win this.
It's sure. No. The thing is that I'm worried that it might not, just because
I would be surprised if it doesn't.
I would be. It's another thing where I would be legitimately insulted by it, because it is it's used so well in the game and with like those characters and those emotional scenes where it's just like, and even on like just like an on paper level, like every song is just composed so well and uniquely. Just compared to everything else here, it's just like, for me, and I know a lot of other people, maybe everyone who's played it, there's like no contest. So again, it depends what the overlords of the gaming industry think, I guess.
All right, moving on to best art direction. Once again, we have Artful Escape, very unique look, Deathloop, Kena Bridge of Spirits, Psychonauts 2, and Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. Man, I feel like they keep picking the same bag of games for all these awards.
Getting to that part.
For art direction, I think Artful Escape definitely deserves to be here. Kena deserves to be here.
100%
Deathloop
deserves to be here.
Deathloop, I'm iffy on. I think it does have a very unique style.
It has a cool setting with this kind of like it's 60s inspired.
Yeah. As far as its actual style, I think it's the usual Arcane, but maybe a touch more stylized than usual.
Yeah, it's more like a deco style. It's very Art Deco, which is very fun to play, but I don't think
it fits the setting well.
I think when you compare Deathloop against Psychonauts 2, Deathloop doesn't quite fit against that.
No, yeah.
And I think Ratchet & Clank. Go ahead, what?
And it does say technical achievement, and so I guess it counts because it is a gorgeous looking game. But in terms of like art direction,
it looks like Ratchet.
I don't think it looks like Ratchet & Clank. I don't think it's but the award does technically also state technical achievement, which means that it should definitely be here because it is a very, very pretty looking game.
Yeah,
it looks like a current gen Ratchet & Clank.
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah, this is one of those categories. I want to see something like Inscription up here at one point, just that has a very unique art style. And I don't think any of these games have something so unique that it really stands out. Kena just is the one here for the technical pick, I think. Because Kena looks amazing.
Because I think Kena has technical and artistic design. It fulfills both categories.
I will just say, thank God Call of Duty isn't here.
I was gonna say, thank God they didn't pick any game that just has the most realistic graphics.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think of these
people who work on games that are incredibly realistic, but it shouldn't be in a art direction category.
No. Yeah.
All right. Of these, how are we feeling? What is our front runner for this? You guys think?
Kana.
Yeah.
Okay.
Artful.
I'm gonna go with Alex on this. I think Artful Escape, if it doesn't win anything else, is gonna win this. So I do think it's gonna be either Kana or Artful Escape. I could see Psychonauts winning. I don't think Ratchet and Clank or Deathloop is gonna win.
No.
Maybe they give it to Deathloop if Deathloop doesn't win anything else. But Artful Escape, I think, absolutely
the
looks
pity
very
award.
interesting.
You know what could have been here that I think probably should have replaced Deathloop is Guardians of the Galaxy, because some of the planets that you go to in that game, especially the first one, are gorgeous and just super out there and wacky looking.
I was gonna say Sable over something.
Sable definitely is a weird
nothing
mission.
else looks like that.
Oh yeah.
Sable very unique. All right, moving on to best narrative. So we have Deathloop again, It Takes Two, Life is Strange: True Colors, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, and Psychonauts 2.
Where's Nier again?
Yeah, Nier is a weird mission again. This one I think is the most justifiable as the story hasn't changed.
Exactly. So yeah.
I could see why it isn't included if that is the reason. Deathloop, as interesting as it is, I don't think stands up against the rest of these. It Takes Two, from what we've played, is good.
I mean,
it's really good, but I do wonder, like, the narrative isn't that unique all the time.
But
and we're also both you and I are very iffy on Dr. Hakim.
I will make the argument that I think it deserves to be here because of how the narrative ties in with gameplay.
True.
So it may not be like when you look at the story just as the writing and
it does have great storytelling, even if the narrative
and the general
itself
plot points. I would say, maybe not the strongest on here, but how it integrates with gameplay and the effect that has. I think it deserves to be here.
Now, for those same reasons you just outlined, I think Psychonauts is going to win. Because I think Psychonauts is a game about exploring the mind state of the people that are the main characters of the game. I think it being executed so well, having played a lot of it, and delving the first mission in Psychonauts is a mission into the brain of this crazed dentist. And the walls are made of like flesh. The doors are teeth.
It's disgusting. I did play that. I did play that far at least because I didn't get around to a lot.
An incredibly interesting mission. And then there's a bit later where you're like twisting someone's brain connections to make them think of a different plan. To like, I think the way narrative ties into gameplay in Psychonauts is going to make it win this.
I do want to give a shout out because we just talked about this in our Guardians of the Galaxy Games Club episode. I love the way that it breaks its own rules to tell its story, and so I think it also is justified in being here because
for sure
it didn't just tell a good story; it told it in a fairly unique way, in a way that only video games can really.
I think it's justified in being here. I don't think it's going to win. So my personal pick would be Psychonauts. I think It Takes Two is great, but probably isn't going to win. Deathloop. If Deathloop wins, I'm going to be a little weirded out.
Yeah.
Even though the story is very interesting, but the way it's presented, I don't think works the best, and there's a lot of smaller issues with how it's done.
Yeah.
Even though I think the game overall is very good.
And then again, we can't comment on Life is Strange because we haven't played it.
Yeah.
So moving on to best game direction. Again, this is a familiar list.
I know. It's really
Deathloop,
weird.
It Takes Two, Returnal, Psychonauts 2, and Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. This has to go to It Takes Two.
Yes.
That would make sense to me from what you guys
Hands
said.
down. As much as I think the only other option is probably Psychonauts, but this really should go to It Takes Two.
I think the reason that Takes Two would have an edge over Psychonauts is because, from what I understand, Psychonauts 2 doesn't do a whole lot that's different that would make it stand out in a game direction category.
Well, Psychonauts has really interesting creative vision, and this award does specifically call it creative vision, and Psychonauts 2 has some of the most creative levels I've seen in games. It has some incredible like power usage in the levels, but then you bring up It Takes Two, which fits all of those same things, right?
Right.
So it's hard to call.
Yeah. It's great because I feel like It Takes Two in almost every single, even if it's in a category that doesn't really make sense, it's still such a strong contender in all of them. It's crazy.
I don't know. I definitely think of the games here, It Takes Two for game direction probably makes the most sense because it is the game that has, I think, the most unique game direction of all of these and succeeds at it. Because Deathloop has unique game direction, but I think there are a lot of downsides to the way it's directed, where it bounces off for some people. But I don't think
Returnal
it's
is an
gonna have a win.
interesting pick because, Ryan, you and I have both pointed out that it kind of co-ops certain roguelike mechanics because
Returnal is like
has
playing
to.
Binding of Isaac in 3D. Because it is like one-to-one translation of Binding of Isaac, except without the understanding of what made some of the Binding of Isaac things great.
Yeah.
Which is Returnal's still a great game, but I think there are some things they take from Isaac that they should not have taken because they don't make sense for the game. It's just the kind of thing where they took everything instead of selecting the parts they wanted.
It had the same issue as like Fallen Order did, where it just took some things from the Souls-like games that it didn't really need to, and it felt the way they tried to justify it felt very stretched and bizarre to try and make the mechanic work or the system work.
Yeah. All right. Moving on, we have our, unless anyone else has anything else to say about those games. Nope. All right. Final discussion, game of the year.
We got the big boy.
So this is the big chonker. We got Deathloop, It Takes Two, Metroid Dread, Psychonauts 2, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, and Resident Evil Village. So I'm gonna say sorry, Resident Evil. I think you're cut from this list immediately.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense.
If I had to pick one, I'd say It Takes Two, but I don't want to say don't like any of the ones in here, but I don't think they deserve it.
This year has been interesting because I think I talked about this earlier in the year, and we don't have a like immediate game of the year contender the way that we do most years. Like usually there is a front runner for game of the year.
I mean, last year when we were doing this last year, for me it was like there was no. I mean, at least for me, it was Hades. It was always good.
Yeah, it's like usually we have some kind of front runner taking at least our vote, but right here, I think most of the other games on this list, aside from Resident Evil, could win this. I think the only reason Village isn't going to win it is it does the least different compared to the rest of these games.
It's the least exceptional, yeah.
Yeah. It's the least exceptionally executed.
It was the one time, maybe other than Deathloop, when I first saw this list, it was the one where I was like, wait, what?
Yeah. Deathloop, I'd also say, is probably lower on my priority list here because of the fact that I think some of it doesn't work amazingly. Most of it's fun.
I can't get around the controls. And that's a personal thing. I hated them with a burning passion. So it just, for that alone, I just couldn't do it.
Yeah, I think Deathloop compared to Metroid Dread, in my mind, I'm not picking Deathloop at all in that. And then you compare It Takes Two to Metroid Dread, and I'm like, oh, maybe like 5 out of 10 times I'll take either. So
right.
I think it gets harder and harder to compare the more you pare the list down. I'm going to pose this question to you, Wyatt. Ratchet and Clank, do you think it has a chance?
You're asking if it has a chance to win, not my personal opinion.
Yes, if you think it would be winning.
Between Metroid Dread, It Takes Two, and Psychonauts, no.
That's what I was thinking. As much as I like Ratchet and Clank, I think...
And I also think it's not... If it had a better story, I would say it's a Game of the Year contender. But...
It's a pretty regular Ratchet and Clank story.
It's close, but it just needs a better story, and then it's there, but it just falls short of like Game of the Year material. But it's very fun. Really, really fun.
I think the real reason, I think Metroid Dread is a top contender here because of the fact that it was a surprise.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of those games that came out of nowhere, batted really hard all of a sudden, and is extremely good. Like,
it totally delivered.
Well, it came out of, like you said, absolutely came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Just like a complete, like...
Especially because Metroid Dread is a rumored name from like 20 years ago.
It found in like it was found in like the files of some other Metroid.
It was found in like, I think the files of Metroid Fusion. There was callbacks to Metroid Dread being like the next entry in the series. Never happened. And then they roll around and Metroid Dread comes out.
It became, for the longest time, it was this like internet forum legend or like some sort of like deep Reddit legend, and then all of a sudden,
and it's hard to say whether or not
it's a good side-scrolling horror game.
It's hard to say whether or not the Dread thing was actually in the game, or if it was just an internet rumor and they co-opted the internet rumor for the name. But either way,
which
it's
is
great.
That's great marketing
Yeah.
right there. That's ingenious marketing.
It's a fitting name. So yeah, between these three, I think it's really hard to call. I'm gonna put my foot out for Metroid Dread because Dread is in so few of the other categories compared to everything else. It strikes me as odd that they just slip it in to Game of the Year.
Yeah, which is weird because it's weird that there's so many like weird things that we're just like using to like help our decision that aren't just like on the merit of how good the game is. It's like, oh well, this was in so many other categories.
That's what the Game Awards are, unfortunately.
It should just be this game is like totally like batting for itself, like great game. This deserves to be Game of the Year, but like Metroid Dread is just like that's why I'm kind of like at it because it's in so few other things. And it deserves to be in, I think, some of those other things.
Yeah.
I think you guys are definitely onto something with that. My hope is that it's Takes-Two because it's one of those games where I'm like, I think Skill Up said this and I'm going to repeat it. I've been doing that a lot recently, but we see, I don't know, whatever. Recently he was like, I'm shocked that human beings made it Takes-Two. That like human beings had the capacity to make this game. And I'm very much on that, on feeling the exact same way. It's like, how did our ape monkey brains make something like It Takes Two? I really don't. I can't comprehend how that was made and just how it was thought up by humans. So,
yeah,
I hope that's what it is. But
I would be happy if It Takes Two wins Best Game Direction. Then I'm okay with it not winning Game of the Year, as long as it gets one of the two. Metroid Dread. I think of It Takes Two, Metroid Dread, and Psychonauts, I'd be happy with any of them winning because they're all amazing games.
I played a little bit of Psychonauts too, and when I played, I really enjoyed
I think unlike last year where Hades was like, I think at least to Wyatt and I, such an outstanding game compared to everything else. There's not a game that would win here where I'd be very disappointed, except for maybe Resident Evil, just because like it doesn't do enough unique. Yeah. I wouldn't be disappointed. It'd just be like, huh?
Yeah, I'd be confused.
You get a solid huh from me. Same with Deathloop, but the rest of them are amazing picks. So
Ratchet and Clank is a very, very, very good PS5 tech demo.
Yeah, great way of putting it.
Which like it seems like I'm kind of being like, I'm not saying that as a negative. It's a very good game, but primarily it's to show off the SSD and all the fancy new
all the hair follicles on Ratchet.
Exactly.
So many teraflops.
I mean, the thing it's named after is the way that it utilizes the SSD. Like that's really what the game is meant to show off more than anything.
All right. So I think with that, we've gone through everything. We are going to do our own award show for this year in January at some point, either January or very early February. We want to make sure we include everything through December of the year before, so we have time to play the games that launch in December. And then we're going to talk about our favorite games. The important caveat with when we do that, we are not limiting it to games that came out this year. It's whatever we played this year. So anything we played this year, we're not going to do a big game of the year like we did last year. We're going to do personal game of the years, so that way we don't have to all play people's games to understand what's happening.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I think that makes sense for this year too, because if I could just say anything, like this whole like this all these categories pretty much with seeing so many of the same like 5 or 6 game repeated through the majority, like the vast majority of these categories. Like Deathloop is in almost like every single one, it feels like, just as an example. Like someone like for as someone who hasn't played any of the ones in Game of the Year, like I can't tell. I just play games that I think look cool, and this is my Game of the Year. I hope this gets there. And then like it's so strange to get here and see it and just be like, well, I have no idea because I played none of these, and I can't imagine that I'm the only one in that situation. It's just so when you repeat so many of the same things through so many of the same categories like that, it's just so you're gonna run into that for a lot of people, and I could see a lot of people ending up feeling like left out.
What I would love to see. Oh, go ahead, continue, Brett. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was just gonna say more than years past, and I think that's like for us. I think having the little caveat of just doing games that we played this year, even if they didn't come out, is just helpful.
Yeah,
because our tastes are so different sometimes that they just don't align.
Yep. All right, and what I was gonna say there is I think I would love to see a Game Awards sometime in the future where they are a lot more restrictive on nominees and don't allow the same nominee in more than like 2 categories.
I would like that. Yeah.
Just for the sake of like including more games as nominees and getting people to recognize games that they maybe wouldn't have heard of otherwise. Like that's what happened with us in The Veil, right? None of us had heard of The Veil before this, and we see that and we're like, oh, that's really interesting. I would love to see more of that. But with this, we just get 6 categories of Deathloop, It Takes Two, Psychonauts, Ratchet and Clank, Resident Evil. And it's just like, fit something else in there.
Yeah.
There's tons of games came out this year.
It's weird just like organizationally to have not the same amount of games per category. Like some have 5, some have 6. It's like just make it like 6 for all of them. And then if you can't think of something for the other one, like then maybe you can do the weird crazy stretches where you have Inscription in the same category as Microsoft Flight Simulator. But you don't have that excuse when you're at 5 games out of a possible 6 to like fit on the website, and you're missing out on other Sims and strategy games that came out in the year. It's just so weird.
And like with Sims and strategy, right? It's like if you honest to God cannot find enough games to fill up a category and it's a smaller category, just make a distinction. Be like, here are some more minor categories that have less nominees in it, just because it's a smaller, more niche category, and then have the bigger,
and those can be your pre-show awards, right? Like
exactly.
Game Awards likes to do those weird pre-show awards where they announce a thing before an ad break or something. You can do those, right? Like have smaller categories that are more specific, and let us get more games awards. You know, we love to see games get awards. All right.
I would love to see because we're getting so many of them now. I would love to see a category for like remasters and remakes and stuff like that.
That'd be cool.
You know, we don't so that they don't show up in categories where it's like, well, they don't belong. Where it's like, well, how much credit can we really give it because it's a game that's already been out, and so it's like the same game with like some remastered visuals or something like that. Obviously, you have things like Resi 2 remake, which has a lot more different than just like a remaster or something. But I feel like we should be separating remasters and stuff like that from games that newer games that came out.
I'm still gonna say I want to see my wild card or mystery.
I agree.
I would love a wild card category. Yeah, just call it a wild card category, an action sack, and then just toss whatever you want in there. It'd be great.
Fiesta goes up and spins a wheel. Yeah.
That'd be hilarious if it was like an audience participation category where you spin a wheel during the show.
One of the options on a wheel is a new pair of kicks previously worn.
One of those is just a picture of Jeff Keighley's face.
It's like, once used by Jeff Keighley. This goes to one lucky winner.
All right. With that, it's time to go to our shout-outs. Who wants to start? Who's got a ready shout-out?
I do. I've been marathoning all the Halo campaigns leading up to Halo Infinite, just to refresh my brain on the lore and because they're, good games. One thing I was really surprised by is Halo 2 Anniversary. They took Marty O'Donnell and Michael Salvatore's score, and they had a bunch of other composers that I've never heard of before go in and like touch up some of the music and change, not drastically change the tracks, but maybe add some instrumentation to it or something. And because it's Marty O'Donnell and Michael Salvatore, I'm like, don't touch it. How dare you? Leave it alone. It's perfect the way it is. I gotta be honest though. I really liked the redone tracks. What they do is they add more instrumentation, so the whole set feels a bit fuller. Like the sound feels a bit fuller, and they don't really drastically change anything, but they do a really good job of just like touching up here and there, adding some extra horns or some operatic singers or something, and it sounds really, really nice. And they also did this great thing where sometimes you'll have one track in a Halo game that reinvents itself like 5 different times, and it has like 3 or 4 distinct sections. They break up each section individually, which is really nice. So if you're looking for a specific section in a song, you can just find it in the score, which is in the anniversary score, which is really nice. So,
all right,
well done,
Alex. I saw you ready at the trigger.
Yeah, sure. My shout out is to oral allergy syndrome. It hurts.
No. I'm so sorry.
All right, Brett, you got something ready?
All right, my shout out goes to Heart Machine's Solar Ash, which I have just finished playing as of last night. I am using this as a cry for help that somebody else on this podcast needs to play this
I'm gonna play
game so
Solar
that I
Ash,
get
don't
to
worry.
do a games club about it.
I'm gonna play it for sure.
As soon as
It's
Halo
so
Infinite's done, I want to play it. It does look really interesting.
It's
But it's not fair to play it right now, right before Infinite comes out for me.
It
Oh,
only
totally,
for
yeah.
PlayStation?
It's gonna get completely just disregarded
Is-
entirely.
Yeah.
Is Solar Ash only for console?
It's on the Epic Store on PC. It's on
That
Epic
would
Store,
explain.
PS4, PS5.
That would explain why I'm not able to get it.
I mean, you're
All
able
right.
to get it.
I can't get the Epic Store to launch.
Oh no.
Yeah, Alex
Never
has
mind, you were
never
unable
had
to get it.
the Epic Store has never worked for Alex. So-
Oh no.
That's epic.
All right.
Shut up.
Epic game moment.
In the same vein as the Solar Ash shout out, I'm gonna give mine to a game called Chorus. So Chorus, we all saw at E3 a while ago. Corvus. It's called Chorus. The name is Chorus, but they spell it with a V for some reason in the title, which I don't get. I did not know what this game is. I heard it released like this morning, looked at it and was like, wait a minute. I thought this was a top-down shooter. No, it's a full 3D spaceflight game. I love those games. There hasn't been like a double AAA one in years. I'm very excited to go play it at some point.
I'm
It's a Microsoft
downloading the
exclusive.
demo.
Brett, I looked at it and I was like,
Microsoft
I was about to tell you about this, but I found out about it like right before this podcast.
Oh my.
Immediately went and got that ready to play because
I know that it appeared at a Microsoft press conference or something around the time.
because it had that
Series
like
X was
really
coming out.
edgy trailer that nobody
Yeah.
understood because it didn't show what
Yeah.
the game looked like.
Is
How do
it
you
a
please spell it again?
Chorus.
You just
Chorus.
look up Chorus on Steam because
It is
Steam
CHORUS. The
Is it a
V,
Microsoft?
the V is not in the title. It's not spelled like that. It's just how they stylized the U for some reason.
Oh, okay.
But it's a very interesting looking game that I'm gonna give a try out. I haven't played it yet, so don't take this as a full recommendation. But it looked very up my alley. So
it's a Brett commendation.
yeah.
Because it's a game that I probably
There
enjoy.
you go. We're proud of you.
But
Brett.
yeah, after this podcast, I'm
Proud of
gonna go give it a try. So be great. All right, with that, we've officially hit the end of our episode. We filled our time near perfectly. We went through the Game Awards nominations, and we're gonna do as soon as the Game Awards is over, which is gonna be it's this Thursday. So next episode, we'll do an overview of our thoughts on the actual awards that happened, and
Are we gonna live
that
stream
will
it as well?
probably. What do you say? What?
Are we gonna live stream it as well?
We probably won't live stream the show itself because they're getting longer, and they're also very filled with sponsored stuff.
We should still watch it though.
Yeah, we're gonna watch it. Probably, I'm at least gonna be in the group Discord to watch it, but
Yeah.
I don't think it's gonna be a good thing to stream just because of the fact
We
that
ha-
it's so long and so filled with ads that it really
we have a
doesn't.
couple game nominations and award wins as a break from the ads.
Yeah, it's. We'll see if Jeff Keighley doesn't put in anything that gets us copyright striked.
I'm waiting for those shoes, Jeff.
All right.
Jeffy boy, I'm waiting for those shoes.
With that, as always, podcast Tuesday morning, 7 a.m. Eastern time. You can catch the WrestleCast happening occasionally. There's probably going to be another one after AEW Winter is coming. I think we'll try to do that and cover the last few episodes of Dynamite. So that'll be a thing that happens too. We do games clubs. We're probably going to do one at Solar Ash in like a month or two, whenever we get to play it. Aside from Brett.
Halo Infinite campaign.
Halo Infinite almost definitely is going to have one. So that stuff's all on the horizon. With that, we will see you next week. Good morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you are.
Don't forget about our Battlefield playthrough.
Oh no, we're doing that this week too.
Oh no.
Game Pass Games Club. That's happening this week as well. So we got 3 things this week. We're going to have
God.
lots of stuff coming.
You know,
So bad.